Yeah, Ron. Yeah, but you're right.
All right. Hey, everyone. We are here for our next session, which is by B Protocol, CEO and founder. He'll be doing a talk. I hear a weird echo. Do you still hear it?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, that goes on your side. That means you have another Crowdcast window open.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
perfect. So we have the former CTO of Kyber, who is now the CEO and founder of B Protocol. They're working on MEVs, and he'll be doing a talk on stabilizing DeFi lending platforms by shifting minor profits to users. And I will let him take it from here. Can you guys confirm in the chat that you can hear him once he starts talking?
Okay, thank you for the introduction. So yeah, a bit more background about myself. So currently founder and CEO of B Protocol, and B Protocol is a project that got a seed fund from my previous place of work, where I was CTO of Kyber Network. In Kyber, we took care of all the Ethereum side of the WBTC DAO, and the CTO took big part in the design. Before that, the entire Kyber Network team met in a project called Smart Pool, where we built decentralized mining pools. So we were in DeFi, so long before it was a DeFi. The core team was meeting while I was doing a PhD in computer science. So in this talk, the technical part is about the miner extracted value, but the concrete application is for lending platforms. So I will first explain what is a lending platform and liquidations, and turns out that although it takes very huge part of the DeFi ecosystem, not many people understand how it really works and how much it depends on liquidations. I will show how the MEV, so-called MEV, is a real threat on the stability of these platforms, and what is the B Protocol solution. So what is a lending platform? So lending platforms are very popular now in DeFi. The top 3 are in charge for almost $4 billion in locked value. So in such platform, a lender basically deposit money of one token type or a basket of tokens, and you get interest rate on these tokens. And against this collateral, you can borrow a set of tokens, which are typically different set of tokens. Now, these are all called lending platforms, but the typical use case will be to take a long or short position over them. Or in the case of MakerDAO, it also gives rise to a stable coin. So as we said, so a typical user will put a collateral, let's say of Ether, and will borrow a different kind of token, say DAI. And recall that all these platforms are completely permissionless, without any identity. The smart contracts do not know who is the user. They cannot go to court and ask him to pay his debt. So what will happen is that they will require his collateral to always be bigger than his debt. And then as the debt approaches the collateral value, he will go through a liquidation process. So they will always take a safety margin. For example, in MakerDAO, it is something like 50% of the debt. In a compound, it's 30%, such that the collateral will be liquidated long before the debt exceeds its value. And in such liquidation, so recall that the user borrowed DAI from someone else who actually deposited. Now, this is not exactly P2P, and usually it's like P to contract. So there's a pool of collateral that many users put, and it's not enough for the liquidator to only return equal amount. I mean, instead of letting all the pool take the user collateral, so this is not enough, because the pool deposited one token, they don't want the other token. So what will happen is that a liquidator will repay the user debt, and in return, we'll be able to take some of the user collateral. And typically, it will be with some premium. So after this liquidation process, the pool is again solvent, and for every dollar or ether that people put as a collateral, which in turn became a user debt, now their collateral is safe again. So without liquidations, practically all of DeFi will break. DAI will lose its peg, Compound and Aave deposits will be gone. There are smaller platforms which support margin trading or synthetic assets. They all depend on leverage, and whenever you have leverage or positions, it's all depend on the liquidations. So without liquidations, $10 billion ecosystem will not really function. And it's really surprising how little people know about the liquidation process and how important it is. And this stems from, so this is kind of a puzzling why it is so, kind of like the dirty secret of DeFi, because DeFi obviously didn't invent the need for liquidation, and this stems already in the traditional finance, so also in stock and equity, where they allow leverages, and in future swap exchanges, and also in the popular crypto centralized exchanges such as BitMEX and every other exchange that allow leverage. So what is it they do in traditional finance? So they have a backstop. Okay, so a backstop in charge to do, a backstop role is to do these liquidations in extreme market conditions. When the conditions are not that extreme, typically they will liquidate by throwing the user debt on the exchange order book. So this big stop is usually composed of very serious, experienced algo traders, which onboard to some backstop program. They commit to liquidate certain amounts when needed. The platform on its side commits to giving a very well-defined liquidation discount, where in BitMEX, Kraken, FTX, it is typically around 1 to 2% for BTC collateral. And when liquidation is needed, so they just dump the user debt on the liquidators. So let's say user has a $1 million in the form of USD debt, and he has $1 million plus some epsilon Bitcoin collateral. So what they will do, they will just take $1 million from one of the liquidators in the backstop, which in turn gets into minus $1 million position in dollars, and get a positive $1 million position in Bitcoin. So this is traditional finance. Now, in the decentralized DeFi world, they decided to take a different approach. So instead of onboarding and trying to aim for big algo traders, they simply let everyone participate. So every time there's a liquidation, everyone can compete on repaying the user debt. But as a result, they don't really commit on anything, the liquidators. The liquidators do not need to onboard, to deposit any funds. Every time there's a liquidation, there's a competition between all players on who get the liquidation first. Now, while in the centralized world, the discount is around 1 to 2%, in the DeFi world, also because traditionally there was very low liquidity, they give very high discount, which is in the order of 3 to 8%. So MakerDAO gives 3%, Compound gives 8%, Aave is somewhere in the middle with 5%. But while in BitMEX and other platforms, the discount is guaranteed to go to the liquidators. Here, because you have like a race between all the Ethereum accounts. So practically what happens if you give 8% discount, which was $80,000, very big part of it will go to the miners, because the miners decide on who will get to liquidate it first, and typically it's a winner gets it all all scheme, where the first liquidator is able to liquidate the entire position. So now we have very big premiums on the one hand, but on the other hand, there's a crazy competition between all players. And this is not only a theoretical concern. We all remember Black Thursday, where basically MakerDAO suffered a loss of $8 million. And it's not only because $8 million is a lot of money or very big quantity in DeFi. It's mostly about no one has any incentive to be prepared to such an event. Okay, so just to give some reference, in BitMEX in the same day there were 100 times more liquidations. And again, in turn, they really, affected the Bitcoin price. You cannot deny that. But they did have this backstop program. Eventually, no user funds were lost. So this is where the miner extracted value really threatened the stability of the DeFi ecosystem. And again, if you threaten liquidations, you threaten the stability of DAI and the entire DeFi system. So moving forward to the next item, so BitMEX, when it needs to liquidate, it will dump the position on the backstop. So here liquidation in DeFi, liquidators, because they don't commit to anything, they don't onboard. Obviously, the platform cannot force them to do anything, and they will liquidate only if they want to. And if they don't, we get Black Thursday. So B protocol aims to adopt as much as possible from the decentralized finance and take the good parts from the traditional world. So in B protocol, we are also permissionless, and technically everyone could participate, but not in every liquidation. This way, instead of letting the miners decide on every liquidation who gets to liquidate, we have an auction periodically, and then when a concrete liquidation happens, the smart contract will take the role of the miners and decide who gets to liquidate. Due to this auction, we get the committed liquidators, while traditionally in DeFi there's no commitment. And another key component is that instead of sharing the discount with the miners, we share it with the users, because miners don't have to get anything, and we use it to incentivize users to use DeFi platforms via our interface. And in the long run, we expect either users will want to continue sharing these profits, or alternatively, we can just increase the leverage ratio that currently platforms offer, which is very low. I mean, it's like X2 in MakerDAO, X3 in Compound, in comparison to X100 on BitMEX. And finally, because we do this periodic auction, then liquidators are committed, initially with a soft commitment to liquidate, and over time, users could force them to have a strong commitment where they deposit fund, and we could throw the positions at them. So basically, by doing that, we are shifting the MEV to the users. So instead of doing so-called gas auction in every liquidation, liquidators compete on a liquidation franchise. Smart contract take the role of the miners in deciding who get to liquidate, and users share the proceeds of the liquidators. So the game theoretic outcome of all of this is basically win-win to everyone beside the miners. So liquidators get more certainty, so they are happy to share the proceeds with the users. And initially, so we go live next week, in 8 days from now, and we got we were able to get 3 new players who were not keepers before in DeFi, and they are very happy to settle with lower liquidation premium because they get this certainty. Platforms get committed liquidators, and users get more because they share the proceeds. So when I say platforms get committed liquidators, so what we do is we build on top of existing platforms in a permissionless manner, and initially over MakerDAO. So basically, what we ask is for the users, instead of interacting directly with the MakerDAO platform, it interacts with our protocol, and it does the usual deposit, borrow, and returning is borrow, as it will do with MakerDAO, and we offer them exactly the same interest rate, exactly the same liquidation penalty, because under the hood everything goes to MakerDAO. Now, how do we offer our liquidators a priority in liquidation while not affecting the user collateral ratio? Right, because allegedly, if you do it on MakerDAO and now the user position needs to be liquidated, then as we say, MakerDAO are open the liquidation process to the entire world. So what will prevent other liquidators to do it? So what we do, we give our liquidators the ability to provide a cushion to the user. So now B protocol see the real debt of the user, and MakerDAO see a smaller debt because the liquidity provider repaid some of his debt. And our smart contract guarantees that they still have custody over this cushion if the user will not get liquidated. And now when the liquidation process will happen, then the rest of the world see a smaller debt, hence it cannot liquidate it, and only our liquidators could liquidate it. And once liquidation happens, part of the liquidation premium goes to a jar where all the users get to share it. So we assign a score to every user according to his interaction with the protocol. Concretely, in this version, it is according to the amount of DAI he generated over time, which is, in other words, the amount of debt he has. And then after 6 months period, all the users will share whatever was collected in this jar. And in addition, the user rating will be used also to decide on the next steps of the protocol. So it's also a governance layer, but it is important to emphasize that it is not a token. So our plan is to go live next Monday, 8 days from now. And what we will offer to user is exactly the same experience he gets in MakerDAO. He will be able to deposit, withdraw, an Ether collateral. He will be able to borrow and repay his DAI, his liquidation penalty, and the liquidation ratio, and the collateral requirements are exactly the same as MakerDAO, and in fact determined by the MakerDAO governance, because practically all his funds are going to MakerDAO. And the only difference is that addition to everything he gets in MakerDAO, he gets on top of it the user rating, which will be used for governance and also will be used to share the jar balance at the end of the period. So these are my 20 minutes. So again, we go live in next Monday. I urge you to try it out. We are also hiring full stack developers. This is our email if you want. And now, okay, so I'm open to questions, and maybe let's start with some typical misconceptions some people might have. So unlike projects like DeFi Saver and others, we do not aim to try and save you from liquidation. We are trying to save and secure the lending platforms. Specifically, at this version, we try to make MakerDAO more stable. This could work in concatenation or composition with solutions like DeFi Saver in the future. And what we offer on top of DeFi Saver is that DeFi Saver basically offers some kind of stop loss mechanism, where you just dump the orders, you just dump the position on the market. So this is very similar to the standard stop loss, which is a very missing component in DeFi, but it's not the same as backstop, and it's less secure. Regarding the token, so as I mentioned before, so user will get his user rating. This user rating will be used after 6 months for governance and deciding on the requirements from the liquidators, on the percentage of proceeds sharing, potentially on other integrations, etc. But it's definitely not a token in the sense that this is simply a record on the blockchain, which is non-transferable and hence non-tradable. Okay. Once a governance is formed, it might decide to give, I don't know, so it might decide to build some liquid governance mechanism based on this scoring. But at this point, nothing is transferable. It's not a token. It's not ERC20. It's just a record on a smart contract that will allow you to vote on the next upgrade of the protocol. Maybe some more misconceptions on, I don't know, so how his approach is different from the other protocol approach. I mean, in particular, why MakerDAO and Compound cannot or do not want to do these kinds of things themselves. So first of all, you know, these platforms are very big and offer something like $1 billion, not offer, but secure over $1 billion in locked value, and they should be very conservative on their experiments. Here, what we offer is a layer on top of it. So basically, it does not add any extra security to the platform. And also the user security eventually stems from the underlying platform, meaning that even if our liquidators fail to liquidate positions, eventually at this point, MakerDAO will liquidate it. So we as B protocols are not responsible and should not secure the user funds because they are inherently secured by the same model as MakerDAO. Basically, MakerDAO is the one who secured them. Any other questions? Okay, maybe on top of that, so because at this point we only add security and stability to MakerDAO, so you know, any experiments we can do, they cannot do, right? Because they have to be very conservative. And traditionally, from some reason, so we see it especially in decentralized exchanges where the trend is actually to dump everything on the retail, and you know, at this point, retail users indexes are the one who provide most of the liquidity, but no real effort was done to bring professional market makers for liquidations. So users are rated at this version according to their DAI debt, meaning so DAI debt over time, meaning if you borrowed 100 DAI and kept it for 1 day, you will get 1 point. Of course, everything will be scaled by a factor. So the most of the interaction. So I don't see any question on the left. So basically, the rating is according to the user interaction. The most you interacted with the protocol and debt and DAI was generated, the more rating you will get. So what is the question on the left? The ask a question. I don't see it. Okay. Ask a question, yeah. Can be found some sweet point between user batching transactions to one huge batch and premium to make this batch attractive to miner, choose it and mine it. So I don't understand the question. So again, like even if you break it to many, okay, if you break it to many transactions and there's no profit, neither for the miners nor for the liquidators, then it wouldn't help. I mean, because there's no profit for the liquidators, so it will also not incentivize them to use it. According to deposits, okay, and also MakerDAO. So this week, next week, we are going live only with MakerDAO. The plan is a month or two after that to go live also with Compound and Aave, probably Compound first. Now, in a MakerDAO, you will only be incentivized or get rating according to your withdrawals, so according to your debt, not deposits, because this is how they measure the interaction. In Compound, the metric will likely be different, but at this point we cannot commit on it. So yeah, if you only deposit, there's not. I mean, we want to incentivize organic behavior. So in MakerDAO, there's no point to only deposit funds there because no one else could borrow them anyway. In MakerDAO, you borrow against yourself. So only depositing will not help. And yeah, okay, so regarding the governance token in the question section, I think I already answered it, but just to reiterate, so there will be a score that will be used for governance, but it's not tradable in the first 6 months. So it's not tradable period, but again, future governance might decide to build something on top of it. So these are the questions. Shifty MEV, could it also have other applications in DeFi? So DeFi also suffers from miners who utilize or exploit, or in other words, profit from arbitrages, so they can arrange themselves profits in arbitrage. Now, well, this is maybe annoying, it could see maybe as a tax on the security one has to pay for using Ethereum. It's less of, like an inherent risk for the DeFi ecosystem or even for the decentralized exchanges themselves. That said, and this is a much bigger problem to tackle, but one can argue maybe with a less profit or a less of additional contribution to DeFi is to tackle this problem. And for that, there are projects who are trying to work on general purpose gas auctions, that will replace gas auctions like the Optimism project. But they're basically, okay, so user will have to pay it, user will do some auction and it will be more fair. But if you take it to liquidations, so it's not enough for it to be fair. If you make an auction and, okay, instead of giving it to the miners, you give it to someone else, still the liquidators, it cuts down their profits, right? And so it cuts down the profit, gives nothing to the users. So liquidators do not have any incentive to liquidate. Users don't earn anything out of it. So even if you go, move forward to proof of stake or other L2 mechanisms that will enforce fairness, so this could solve the arbitrage problem, but not the liquidation problems. Because again, if you take MakerDAO, for example, it doesn't really care if profit goes to the miners or the liquidators or to some L2 operator. But once it doesn't go to the liquidators, there simply will not be any liquidators or any backstop. So this is the real issue, and you don't really have it in arbitrage.
All right, so we are almost out of time. Do you have any closing thoughts or words?
So again, I recommend you to visit us on Twitter or our website at bprotocol.org. Currently, we have our testnet live, and in 8 days, we'll also have the mainnet live. And if you are currently a MakerDAO user, so again, we offer the same security guarantees with more incentives. So please try us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to transition to the next session now.